Welcome to this demonstration on single sign-on with Centralpoint. Here we are looking at a Centralpoint portal. We are a cross-forest single sign-on solution. This means that as users log in, we are able to determine who they are a member of, meaning are they a member of Active Directory, LDAP, Salesforce, whatever systems, plural, that you're running, and that's why we call it cross-forest. Here we see someone logging in and being returned to a private portal. And here we see another user logging in with credentials being returned to their private portal. So in essence, these are different users of different roles being routed to different places based on their status within Active Directory. Now, or other systems. In the back end of Centralpoint, we have a module called Global Login, and we can have multiple authentication touch points. We might integrate with Salesforce, Active Directory, LDAP. So when someone logs in, we're going to go check all of those containers. Another thing to notice is that we also have Centralpoint. We can use Centralpoint as an authentication source. Why would we do that? Well, we might have people who are applying to be an employee, perhaps a interested prospect or client. So in this case, we need a place in which to store these members so that we can now treat them as a onboarding candidate who is being considered for membership. So when you think about membership, there's pre-members, there's existing members, and of course there's members living in all sorts of different systems. So looking at global login, let's take a look at an Active Directory connection. And I want to turn this off just to show you that basically when we connect to your paths in Active Directory, we might have 20 or 30 different records here. One to define finance, one to define administration, one to define sales. We might also have other records living here for authentication to Salesforce or to your database that manages your suppliers. But within Active Directory, and this is a new feature as of April 2016, we have the ability to, or will upon the next update, to map all of the fields against Active Directory. And what does this mean? Well, normally we bring in username, password, first name, last name, the basics. We kind of determine what role they belong to, which channel they should be redirected to. But then we start getting into the granularity of the individual fields within Active Directory. So within the toolbox, I've opened up the toolbox here in the top right. I've dragged over the Active Directory feature. And you'll see that we've included 1,400 fields from Active Directory. Now, many of these you might not use in Active Directory. We suggest that you try and spend some time to clean up Active Directory because a lot of this information, how much timeout, what department, what type of trust setting they have with you, their phone number, their middle name, birthday, date of hire, all of that kind of information. We now have the ability to integrate with any field which you currently have within Active Directory. Here you see these scripts that allow us to map, in essence, the data from Active Directory into Centralpoint. So we can build very granular data. When we do that, and you might need to store that information within Centralpoint, we then go into our members module. This is where we would store that information, and we would then go to the configuration file. So the fields that we currently make available in Centralpoint, consider the basics: name, rank, serial number, address, title, department, etc. But if there were additional fields that we're bringing in from Active Directory, you would want to modify the config XML configuration XML document for this particular module for members or administrators, so that we can now handshake those two systems in harmony. So that's a very great improvement for Centralpoint, and it gives us a lot of capabilities. Another improvement that we want to talk about that's rather large is roles themselves. So for example, roles is where we define that label for finance or administration. Now the reason we do this is because when we're tagging content or we're tagging information, we need labels that make sense. For example, your path to Active Directory may have some cryptic name, so we need to give those people managing content the appropriate role name so that they know that the right records will reach the right audience. Now another reason we do the roles is this. When we're looking at roles, sometimes it's not just as simple as, sales rep. So for example, Active Directory might have a path for all sales reps, and that's fine, but we might need to split hairs over here in Centralpoint. So we might need to create a filter that says, show me all sales reps from the Western region who have exceeded their quota, who are gender equals female, whatever the criteria might be. So this dynamic roles filter basically allows us to split hairs to say, look, we need to create a very refined role in Centralpoint where, start date equals this and end date equals that. And, so we can just keep building this very, very long filter of conditions to allow us to filter that. And that role might be considered, Western region sales managers, So sometimes Active Directory isn't that well articulated. Sometimes Salesforce is not that well articulated. So as you can see, we have a superior way of taking the basic authentication sources that you have and doing more with it. Now this is very important because these roles allow us to now create a more personalized experience for each user. As the content is tagged to Western Region Sales Manager or Hong Kong, Sales Associate, of course we can now reach people in a more granular way, and thereby depending less on the number of audiences that we need to define, and instead focusing on the individual security roles of each user, and allows us to basically do a lot more with a lot less effort. So roles and single sign-on in the terms of an intranet or extranet are really the heart and soul of this whole thing. Another improvement recently, within the last few months here at Oxcyon, are deep links. Now, what are deep links? All right. Once we've authenticated a user, we know who they are, we've captured their values within Centralpoint, we may need to pass that data, or shall I say, we might need to respond to the request of any other system that, once they're logged in, through SAML 2.0 in what we call a deep link. So for example, this means that for your applications today that support SAML 2.0 or have the ability to deep link from Centralpoint or with Centralpoint, this means that once we've authenticated this user, they no longer have to log into these other applications. Now I will say, integration with applications that are SAML 2.0 compliant, if you need us to do it, it's still going to be a billable project. We're still going to have to set that up if we have not already integrated with that vendor. But there are a lot of vendors out there, so likely that's probably going to be some custom project, but that's fine. Once we can make that connection, by the way, you will be free to build those deep links yourselves if you don't want to pay us for that project. But this becomes really the central hub of everything, because these members, as they're coming in, and again, each authentication might require a different challenge. They might have to validate against 4 or 5 or 6 different fields instead of just username and password. So global login has definitely evolved over the past, 16 years, but over the past few years, it's gotten a lot more granular. It also now considers active, secure LDAP, secure Active Directory. Sometimes we use that in authenticating users from home that need to access the intranet. We also support Windows authentication, which is slightly different, but a lot of information here, and likely our team will set this up for you. When you secure a project with Centralpoint, we set it up. We're going to do all this work for you initially to set it up, but it's very important to sit back and kind of take a big look at authentication, global login, because our advice is the more information you can get put into Active Directory. A lot of our clients may or may not have their Active Directory in good order. So I think some good housekeeping for Active Directory, LDAP, or any other system you're running is really great, because the more information you have in that system, the more we can glean from that system, and the better the personalized experience to the user. So it all kind of starts at the beginning or at the top of that mountain.